Hey there, it's Davin Michaels, founder and CEO of 123employee, the premier outsourcing centers in the Philippines. And I want to welcome you to this educational hangout where we are going to be sharing with you how to create an outsourcing blueprint for your business. Now, we find today that entrepreneurs have more on their plate than they ever have had in the history of the planet. If you're an entrepreneur, I'm sure that you can relate. At the same time, there's a perfect storm going on, and that's because entrepreneurs have less help than they've ever had in the history of the planet. Let me kind of explain how that works. So, first of all, because of innovation, now you have so much that you can do in your business. Because of innovation and technology, you can do the marketing, you can do the distribution, you can do the sales, you can do everything in your business. But the reality is that's potentially a recipe for overwhelm. There's just too much to do. At the same time, so many entrepreneurs, once again, because of technology and innovation, have the ability to work from home. So as a result, we used to work in an office environment where you could easily outsource or delegate things to other people on your team. That doesn't exist anymore because so many people work virtually. So as a result, this creates a perfect storm for overwhelm. Entrepreneurs have more on their plate than they ever have had in the history of the planet. They have less help than they've ever had, and it's really a recipe for overwhelm and disaster. We know that entrepreneurs are busier than they've ever been, but do you really feel like you're getting anything done? Do you feel like you're sort of on the hamster wheel? Well, we know that so many entrepreneurs do feel that way, and the logical solution is a better solution, and generally that's outsourcing. And today, because of technology, once again, we have the ability to outsource to people an ocean away, save a lot of money. We hope that you'll outsource with our company, 123employee, but hey, we support you in getting help and leverage in your business. Unfortunately, what happens though is so often is that people go out, they try to outsource, but they end up failing. They don't they're not able to execute it properly. Quite often they blame their virtual assistants for not knowing how to do things. Quite often they blame themselves for getting too busy to manage or not knowing how to manage. And of course, this is not a good recipe. So I'm joined today with our Vice President of 123employee, Bijal Palmer, and we figured we would jump on a hangout and share with you how to create your own outsourcing blueprint so that you have an initial roadmap to get you started in your outsourcing endeavors. So Bijal, welcome to the hangout.
Hey, thanks, Davin.
All right. Well, where are you today?
Right now, I'm in Bangalore, but I have been packing. I'm actually heading to your side of the planet in a few days.
All right, excellent. You'll be in Los Angeles, so you'll be joining us for one of our events. You know, early on in our business, we've been around for, I don't know, 7+ years now, quite a while, and we were early adopters in the outsourcing business, and people knew what outsourcing was, but we were sort of outsourcing 2.0, or I even call it outsourcing 3.0, which was outsourcing for entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs didn't really get it. They didn't know anything about it, and we realized early on in our business that unless we educated our marketplace, we would be out of business. And so we began educating our prospects, who later became our clients, and it was a win-win for both of us because, of course, they became educated. They realized that working with 123employee was a logical choice, but even more than that, we then found that the clients that actually came through our educational funnels were much, much more successful in their business and their outsourcing endeavors. And we learned early on that a better educated client is a much, much more successful client. And that's why we do these hangouts. And we also do our events all over the world. Many of our events, Beyond Marketing Live, Outsource Live, Beyond Business Live, we've done these events to tons of young, bright entrepreneurs all over the world, Asia, Europe, the U.S., Australia, New Zealand, and we do have one coming up in LA shortly. So look forward to seeing you there, B.
Yeah, I'll be jumping on the plane real soon, and it's going to be a great event.
Indeed.
All right. Well, let's kick off here, Davin. You know, one of the things that people when they first come to 123, or when they start talking about outsourcing, and I've heard it often, is, you know, I'm not sure if this outsourcing thing can really work for me. And let me tell you, if my 9-year-old daughter can outsource her lemonade stand, I think there's a pretty good chance we can help you outsource elements of your business. The question is, where do you start? You know, and that's what we're really going to address in this hangout today. And so we've created like a kind of a 6-step process, and I'll kind of take you through it one at a time. But let me just give you the 6 steps off the bat here. The first step is knowing what to delegate. Step number 2 is what to delegate first. Step number 3 is who to delegate to. Step number 4 is how you want the task done. Step number 5 is when you want the task done. And step number 6, last but not least, is to know your role in the process. So let's break those 6 steps down and give you some more insight in what all that really means. So let's start off with knowing what to delegate. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, there's a good chance you've got more than one project going on, or more than one income stream, maybe more than one business. So we always say, look, let's pick the one business that you can monetize, and then you can delegate out so you get your time back. That'll give you more time to work on your other business. What we also know is that when you're working on 3 or 4 income streams of businesses, the chances are that you're probably not giving, not one of them is really working efficiently. So the starting point is picking that one business. Davin, you've got a lot of experience in building multiple businesses. How do you know where to put your time? You've got your film production, you've got your music production, and you run 123. How do you juggle all that?
Sure, sure. Well, really my strength is my ability to manage people and my ability to attract young, bright people that, or just bright people in general that are very good at the things that I'm not so good at. And one of the things that we tell people early on is don't try to become an expert in anything. You don't want to master anything. You just want to have a cursory understanding of everything. We meet people all the time that decided, they want to create a new website, so they spent 6 months learning how to design websites. And that's absurd when you can find somebody for $6, $7 an hour who can do that stuff for you. So what I always do, and this is very simple, but I go with the money. And I always follow the money. So I always tell entrepreneurs, if you're going to be outsourcing, first outsource the tasks that make you money. And this is what we call outsourcing ROI. Because if you do that and you're making even more money, then you don't have to worry about your VA. I mean, if you hire a virtual assistant, initially that virtual assistant is a liability, aren't they? I mean, it's another line item in your expenses, so it's a liability. As soon as that person begins generating their cost in revenue to you, they're no longer a liability. And then as soon as they surpass that number, they're now an asset. And so what you want to do is you want to focus on the tasks that make you money. Have your virtual assistants do those tasks for you. Then you want to focus on the tasks that save you time, because time is the one thing that you can't purchase. Doesn't matter how much money you're making. If your time is worth a couple $1,000s an hour, you still can't go out and buy more time. Time is a precious commodity, and so you want to get your time back, because then you can utilize that time to grow even more business. And we do highly suggest start with one business at a time, or maybe 2 max. Every entrepreneur we meet these days have 14 businesses going, and what is the point? I don't understand what the point is of 14 businesses. Unless you're a multi-millionaire, then I get it. You have tons of huge income streams, but otherwise, what's the point of having 14 businesses? I'll tell you this: if you have 4 businesses, each one's going to get 25% of your attention. That's just the way it works. If you have 2, 50%, and if you have 1, it's 100%. So focus on one at a time, 2 at the very worst case scenario, but definitely focus at one at a time. And Bijal, should I get into sort of a little exercise for identifying some of those tasks right now?
Yeah, actually, I was going to break that down for the folks here, which is, if you have a sheet of paper, go ahead and grab that and draw a line down the middle. And we're going to kind of give you a really simple version at the event. We kind of do it a little bit more sophisticated, but here's a real simple way. On the left-hand column, just write all the things that you need to do for the one project or one income stream. So let's just focus on one business at a time. So left-hand column, everything you feel only you can do for that business. On the right-hand column, just write down every single other task that you can think of that makes up that project, that business, that income stream. Now, once you've done that, you're going to start off with placing a 1 or a dollar sign. Now, what the 1 means is there may be some tasks that you have to get done before you can start generating money. Maybe building a website, maybe creating a video, creating content for the website. So these are tasks that you have to get done before you can actually start your marketing or the income generation. So any of those tasks, go ahead and place a 1 by that task. Next, scan your list and look for all the tasks that will actually generate income for you, and place a dollar sign next to that. Now you're going to have kind of 2 main groups of tasks. One is your things that you have to get done first, and the second group are the money-making tasks. So I'm going to put the things you have to get done first on one side, and just for your information, that would include, again, websites, content creation, creating videos, writing sales copy, integrating a shopping cart. That's your one-time task that you need to get done first. Okay, let's go on to the marketing task. Now, you may have 10, 20 identified tasks there. What we would say is go with the task that you feel is going to bring you most bang for the buck. The one that you know either you've done and it works, or that you've seen other people do and you know it works for them, but maybe you just haven't had the time to implement it. That's what we normally say by, pick those money-making tasks. Now, if you've got all those things now outsourced, then you can move on to the time-saving tasks. This is stuff that you don't want to do, or it takes up a lot of your time. So that's your first three primary groups of how you prioritize what to outsource. You want to add anything there, Dan?
I think that's great. I think that it's all about having a plan, and so if you do that in advance, you know specifically which tasks you're going to focus on, and that's absolutely the way to do it, rather than just sort of shooting in the dark.
Cool. All right. So now you've got these groups of tasks identified. The next step is who to delegate to, and this is where we want to make a distinction between what I say three groups. You've got your consultants, you've got specialists, and you've got employees/virtual employees. Now, the reason I've kind of grouped employees/virtual employees together is, in our world, it doesn't make a big difference. It's just more of contractually how you employ people, but they're still employees. And I think one of the mistakes a lot of people do when they first hire their virtual employee is they think of them as somebody on the other side of the planet. And I always say, look, think of them as a member of your team. And while they're on your team, think of them as an employee. Don't think virtually whatever, because a lot of times even your own employees may be working virtually. So we don't have those barriers anymore. Okay, so you got these three groups. Now, so Darren, when would you use a consultant, a specialist, and a virtual employee?
Okay, great. So people think of virtual assistants quite often as a specialist. They think, I'm going to hire my virtual assistant, I'm going to say, tell them to do my marketing, and it's all going to get done. They're a marketing specialist, and that's just not the case. You need to think of your virtual assistant as a task executor. So there are many, many tasks that you do every day in your business that you know inside and out. You're a professional at this. You've been doing it for forever. And so these are the tasks that you can easily teach and train to somebody else. So these would be going to your virtual assistant. Okay, this is stuff that it's just basically they follow the instructions and they're good to go. A consultant is when it's something that just totally goes beyond your scope. If you don't understand it, then you're going to need to hire a consultant to help you with understand it and create a plan for you. And then what was the other one? Be a specialist?
Specialist, yeah.
Yeah, so a specialist might be like a web designer. You don't know how to design websites, nor should you. So at that point, you just hire the web designer and have them do the project for you. And specialists are used quite often in project-based tasks.
Cool. Now, a lot of times, when people work with 123, it's not that our VAs can't do websites. They can do the basic stuff, but we always recommend that, look, if there's someone who specializes in that one skill, that one thing, you'll probably get your work done quicker and better by someone who's focused on merely that. And again, the best use of a virtual employee is for those day-to-day, week-to-week tasks that really consist of the operational aspect of your business.
I agree.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So moving on from there, we have how you want the task done, and I think this is where I would say most people go wrong. It's not too difficult to sit down and say, okay, look, this is what I need done for my business. Nor is it kind of difficult to find people to do that thing. But where I feel a lot of people shortchange themselves is not giving enough time to really create a set of instructions for the VA. Now, I want to be clear here. A lot of times when I say this to people, they say, well, what do you mean? Do your VAs not know how to log into Facebook? That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is they need to understand how you want things done. And Darren, you've got a lot of experience in creating training material. In fact, it goes way back to employee number one. I don't know if you want to share that quick story or of how important it was for you to create instructions, and how that turned into a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't mind sharing the story of Carl. Our very first employee at 123 Employee was Carl. And Carl didn't happen overnight. Matter of fact, Carl was the third attempt at trying to find somebody great. What happened was I was looking to open a sales floor. It was probably going to be in the U.S. initially, and I didn't know whether I was going to do virtual or non-virtual. The virtual thing was just getting started at the time. It was just a couple companies were doing it here and there, and so we decided. I was contacted by a company overseas. I was spending a lot of time overseas, and they thought that they could do it. And we had our first interviews, and I hired my first person, and that person, was with me for a day. And I lost that person. That was but hey, I realized that as an entrepreneur, you have to remain flexible in your approach, and sometimes you have to kiss a couple frogs before you find your princess. And so I went back to the hiring table a second time, and this time I hired Ainsley. Ainsley was amazing, amazing for the 2 weeks that I had Ainsley, and then I lost Ainsley. It seemed like no matter what I did, I couldn't get him to show up to work on time. And that was my second experience outsourcing. And at that point, I kind of gave up. I said, you know what, I don't want to really do this anymore. I just went back to the U.S. I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't have a lot of time on my plate to mess around with this. But I couldn't get out of my mind this idea of being able to hire such inexpensive employees that knew how to do this stuff. And so reluctantly, I went back to the hiring table a third time. And this time I hired Carl. But Carl didn't just get it, he really got it. And he was amazing. And I actually did the training of Carl back then. Today I don't do much training. I create training programs, but I don't really train one-to-one anymore. But back then I was the trainer in our business, and so I worked with Carl. And what I did is I set up a remote desktop so I could see what Carl was doing while I was working with him, while I was doing these trainings with him. And I wasn't really so concerned what Carl was doing while I was working with him, but I wanted to see what Carl was doing when I wasn't working with him. I feel a good judge of someone's character is what they do in their off time. And so so what I did is I worked with Carl, and I worked with him for about an hour at a time, and then I'd cut away. But when I cut away, I could see what Carl was doing on his computer screen, and what I saw amazed me. Carl each time would open up a Word file or a text file, and he would begin typing copious notes from our last hour together verbatim. And when I saw that, I said, cha-ching, and I was right. Carl took off like a rocket, and Carl was employee number one. And he took off like a rocket. We hired the next person, the next person, the next person. Then we opened our own center, and we brought on the next person, the next person, the next person. Our business began to flourish. And what was cool, too, is that I paid Carl small performance bonuses based on his performance, and for me it wasn't a lot of money, but for Carl it was a small fortune. And so Carl was able to put himself through school, put his sister through school. He was able to send money home to his mom, and then Carl graduated, his sister graduated. It took him about a year to get his visa, and today Carl is a physical therapist in Chicago, in the U.S. And it's a great story. We're still good friends. Anytime I roll into Chicago, we go grab a slice of pizza and hang out. And it's amazing what happened. And I certainly changed Carl's life, but he changed mine right back. And he was really the catalyst for the company. And it was pretty incredible. And so that was my long answer about training. But there's really a few ways to train your virtual assistant. One is written documentation, manuals, which are great, but they become outdated very quickly, and they're hard to keep up, and they're time-consuming to create. And we find that entrepreneurs have no time. And so the easiest way to do it is to use screen capture videos. And if you're a Windows user, you can pick up a full functioning copy of Camtasia for online. It's free for 30 days. And it's fully functional. You can use it to record what you're doing on your computer. So you just have a microphone, and you're talking as you do the moves utilizing your computer, and it records everything, and you just send that to your virtual assistant. And today, just about any task you're going to be doing, you're going to be doing on a computer. So it's really easy to do. If you're a Mac user, you can use ScreenFlow. My personal favorite is QuickTime because QuickTime records on the Macintosh platform, and you can just record these things and send them to your virtual assistant, and you just sort of walk them through the process. There's a great service that we offer for free just for being on this Hangout that you can use to transfer those files because they're going to be big files, they're video files. So when you send them to your virtual assistant, you can simply use 123filetransfer.com. That's 123filetransfer.com. Those are the numbers, 123filetransfer.com. And you can transfer files up to 2 gigabytes. So you can transfer big files for free.
Awesome, D. Okay, so step number 5 is when you want the task done. And this is something that a lot of people kind of overlook when they're assigning a task because, again, they're busy and they don't think of it. But, you know, about a few months ago now, I had to assign a task, and that task was research with meetup groups. And meetup groups, if you don't know, is kind of an online platform for creating offline events. And I wanted one of our VAs to research meetup groups in certain cities in the US. And I assigned the task on a Monday, and I didn't tell her how long I wanted to spend. I was busy myself. And in my mind, it was kind of a half-a-day task, maybe a one-day task. Now, Meetup is fairly extensive, so if you don't give the right parameters, you could actually spend a lot of time researching groups on Meetup. And that's exactly what happened. So when I checked back in with her 3 or 4 days later, she was still doing the tasks. And you know, so at first I was a little bit annoyed because that's not really what I wanted from her. But when I look back at my instructions, she did exactly what I told her to do. And that is, she didn't read my mind. She did what I told her to do. And so I think it's really important that, you know, when you assign a task, you work out a time frame for that task. Now, if it's a one-off task like a website, have a discussion with your web designer beforehand in terms of how long it's going to take. Now, most web designers will kind of underestimate the time. Now, if you are kind of in a critical phase of your business where you need the website done, you can work out clauses with your designer and say, hey, look, if you don't get it done in the time frame we've agreed, then you'll reduce it by X amount per day. That is an acceptable way to make sure that your work is done on time. But when it comes to virtual employees, when they're working on day-to-day, week-to-week tasks, we use Google Calendar. We schedule all the kind of the day-to-day stuff in the calendar, and when the VA comes to work, they know exactly what they have to do in their allocated time. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't add in one-off tasks. You can, of course, you can. You can just go into the calendar and add in, say, a research task that you want to get done, or maybe you're flying somewhere and you want them to research certain flights for you or hotels for you. You can add those tasks in. So the Google Calendar is a very powerful tool that will help you manage and schedule your task for your VA, and along with that, you know, we'll use Google Docs as well to kind of prioritize certain list of things we want done. Now, there are more sophisticated systems, Central Desktop, Basecamp, and then there's numerous others. And even though we've tried many, we've always seemed to gravitate back to what's free and what's easy. That's what works for us, but you use what works for you. And that leads us on to step number 6. And I think Davin's already touched upon this, but it's the importance of knowing your role in this whole process. So often as entrepreneurs, we do allow our busyness to impact the way we manage our team, and this comes back to leadership qualities. And again, Davin is a maestro at this. It's because of that ability to lead people. He's able to manage so many different businesses. Davin, just 3 tips on knowing your role in the process of outsourcing.
Sure. So knowing your role in outsourcing. Well, number 1, you want to make sure you have clearly defined tasks. Number 2, let people give their feedback. Let people take charge and run their tasks and their projects. And then finally, make sure that you manage on a timely basis. So you set specific times that you're going to review the KPIs, the milestones on a regular basis so that you don't get too busy to manage.
Now, at 123, we do end-of-day reports. We also do end-of-week reports. How do if they're not working 123 and they're working with, say, VAs outside of our company, what's a good way to keep track of accomplishments from their team?
Sure. Like you said, B, we always seem to go back to what's easy and free. And so we like Google Docs. And so if you utilize 123 employee services, then on a nightly basis, at the end of each day, we give you a fully detailed report of what transpired throughout the day. And then we have specific KPIs that are put in there, but you can always alter those KPIs. So it's easy to monitor and see what's going on. If you were using freelancers or something like that, you could use Google Docs. That's an easy way to do it. And then of course there are other more sophisticated systems like Basecamp and so on and so forth. And one thing we haven't really touched on too much is we haven't really even talked about 123 employee virtual assistant services too much. So let's kind of talk about that for a minute, because when it comes to working with a virtual assistant, you really have two choices. You can use freelancers or you can utilize a managed facility. And 123 employee is a managed facility, and there are pros and cons to both. You can save a little bit of money utilizing freelancers. Sometimes you can find specialists utilizing freelancers. But there are so many, and of course we're biased, but there are so many upsides to utilizing a managed facility, and we've learned over the years this is where it's at. We've had so many people that have used freelancers unsuccessfully, or maybe they've used freelancers successfully for a while, maybe 6 months, 9 months, very happy with their employees, and one day they just disappear. Or there's an act of God, or there's a flood, or there's a power outage on a regular basis, or the phones go down, or there's a hardship, and then all of a sudden they're starting all over again. With a managed facility like 123 employee, you don't have to do that. I mean, we do have a very low attrition rate, but occasionally we lose people. But if we do, you have a project manager, you have total accountability, you have your training program on file so that we can easily get your new person up to speed. You don't have to worry about power issues. You don't have to worry about phone, because all of this is redundant. You don't have to worry about acts of God, because these are physical centers that people work out of that are built to code. And the list really goes on and on. You have scalability, you have accountability. There's a lot of reasons to utilize an actual managed facility, and it really comes down to when you want to do projects. Maybe freelancers are where it's at, but when you're ready to have somebody that's dedicated to your business, that's going to be working for you on a consistent basis, whether it's full-time or part-time, that's when you want to start working with a managed facility like 123 employee.
Awesome, Lee. All right, so let me just run through those 6 steps again. So step number 1 is knowing what to delegate, and this includes prioritizing your businesses, your projects, or your income streams, and picking one to start with. Step number 2 is knowing what to delegate first. So you'll start off with your one-time tasks. You will then focus on your money-making task, and then you'll go on to tasks that you don't want to do or are too time-consuming for you. Step number 3 is knowing who to delegate to, and that's your consultants, your specialists, and then your virtual employees. Step number 4 is how you want the task done. So these are creating instructions that will help your VA accomplish the task exactly the way you want it done. Step number 5 is when you want the task done. So this is using scheduling software such as Google Calendar to make sure that your tasks are done per your time frame. And last but not least, step number 6, which is knowing your role in the whole process so you can lead your virtual team effectively. And I think that kind of covers the key elements of creating your outsourcing blueprint.
Excellent, and well done, Brijal. And if you'd like to get more information on our services and some very free gifts that we have for you, simply go to 123employee.com. And if you're watching this, you're probably an entrepreneur. You're probably looking for 10 employees or less. And so you're going to click on the Small Business tab. And when you click on that tab, you'll see a place to opt in. And when you do opt in, we'll send you some great free gifts. We'll send you our 5-part list building video series, our VA service guide. We'll send you a ton of training tips, as well as an invite to an educational webinar where I'll share with you how to generate unlimited leads for life in your business. I'll show you how to make that happen within 90 minutes. And on that webinar, we'll make an offer for you to get 3 months of free virtual assistant services at 123employee. So once again, go to 123employee.com, click on the Small Business button, and then opt in. You'll get all those free gifts, plus some other free gifts that I didn't even mention. And I look forward to sharing more information with you. And eventually, hopefully, we'll be helping you get out of overwhelm and getting your time back and your life back. Until next time, this is Davin Michaels from 123employee and
Bijal.
And we want to thank you for joining us. Make it a great day. Get more information and get some leverage on your business. Until next time, this is Davin Michaels. live your true life adventure. See you soon.
Bye bye.